which is pretty funny because it's a pretty tense scene.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because he's sticking the gun in the guy's face, telling him not to lie. So it's that tension, and then all of a sudden the tension breaks when the ringtone comes in, and it's Gold Digger. But then the guy immediately gets freaked out and knows that he's screwed. And, you know, Dalton grabs the phone, and the guy's like, look, I fucked up, man, I'm so sorry. And Dalton, like, looks at him, he's like, oh, don't worry about it. And he just, like, walks away, but he goes into, like, the manager's office. He shuts the door, and then you can kind of see, because the glass isn't real transparent. It's kind of that translucent.
Yeah.
Where you can kind of see shapes, but you can't really see beyond that. And Dalton has like this almost like one-sided conversation with himself in the office. You can kind of see through the window. He's like he's making gestures and like, you know, putting his fist under his chin like he's thinking. And he does this for maybe 10, 15 seconds. And then all of a sudden he comes barging out of the manager's office, grabs the manager and drags him into the office, and you can tell that he's kind of savagely beating him. But as, you know, as a warning to everyone else.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, this guy lied to me. And he comes out and says, anyone else think that they're smarter than me? Okay, now everyone needs to strip. So they want everyone to strip. Everyone complies except for this one older lady. And he goes up to her and he tells her, you know, look, this is the only circumstance I would be asking you to take your clothes off. And she clearly does not want to. And he's like, you know, lady, come on. And then she won't, so he gets one of the accomplices to go grab her and drag her. And they put everyone in these painter coveralls.
Mm-hmm.
So that everyone will be dressed the same.
It's Stevie that takes her, right?
Stevie, the female accomplice.
Yeah, takes
and
her.
By the way, all the accomplices are variations on the name Steven.
Mm-hmm.
There's Stevie, who's the female. There's Steve-O, who's the younger guy, and then Steve, who's the older guy. And then Clive Owen as Dalton Russell doesn't go by the Steve alias. But they dress everyone else. They dress everyone up the same. And then I think from there we cut to Denzel Washington, who's a detective who's got some kind of investigation into him, whether or not he took money on the job from I think they busted like a check cashing place, and money went missing, and he's been accused of it. And him and his partner, who's Chiwetel Ejiofor, who those guys are both in American Gangster the next year together, which is a super underrated Ridley Scott movie.
I just watched that one recently, and it's really good.
Yeah, it's great. It's kind of a shame that it doesn't get as much love as that should. And Denzel Washington is awesome in it. So both of those guys go on to work with Ridley Scott in American Gangster the following year. So the captain comes out and says, hey, I got a job for you guys. You know, there's a hostage situation in the bank. And apparently the guy that usually handles the hostage situation is on vacation. So that's why that's why Keith Frazier, Detective Frazier, Denzel's character, and Detective Miller, who's Ejiofor's character, that's why they get put on it. And it's funny because they're almost like excited that they're going to get onto the hostage thing. They think they're like going up to the big time, and maybe it's just because they got out of the office and because Denzel had the investigation into him, but they're both like excited to go.
Frazier's also looking to try to get a promotion, right?
Yeah, he wants to make detective first grade, and I think the money thing, whether or not he took the money, is hanging over him. That's probably preventing that from happening. He has this funny discussion where he's talking with his girlfriend on the phone just prior to getting the call to go. And it turns out that, he's dating this girl. She's got like kind of a younger brother who's trouble that he talks about, and he says, yeah, her brother isn't too happy that his sister is dating a cop. And his discussion with Miller just prior to getting the call is pretty funny. How he's talking about how if they got married, they could move out and like the kid would be on his own and they wouldn't have to deal with him. It's just like a funny little bit before they get called. And then I think we cut to Christopher Plummer's character, who is Arthur Case, who's the chairman of the bank, and he gets notified that one of our branches is there's a robbery at one of our branches. There's hostages. And he asks which bank, and they tell him, the Manhattan Trust, like downtown, or something, is what they say. And then you can tell he's troubled by that. He's troubled by the fact that certain bank is the one that got taken over. So, shout out to Christopher Plummer, who's a great actor who, as we said, just passed away. He was great in Knives Out back in 2019. I was going to say last year, but last year is 2020, which we both enjoyed. We both talked about on the year-end show. He's in Malcolm X, so he's worked with Spike Lee before, but he's awesome. Like you said, girl with the dragon tattoo. Did you ever see All the Money in the World?
No, but that's the one with Wahlberg, right? The one that came out.
Wahlberg is miscast in it, in my opinion. But the thing with All the Money in the World was that was Kevin Spacey was in that role as J. Paul Getty, because it's the story about the Getty kidnapping. And J. Paul Getty was the kid's grandfather that they were trying to get the money from, and he very famously didn't want to give up the money. He had it. He very well could have, but he didn't want to give up the money to get his grandson released. But that role, that's a Ridley Scott movie, that role was Kevin Spacey. And the film was completed already, and then that whole Kevin Spacey story broke like October of 2017. The movie was supposed to come out like at Christmas of 2017, and that whole Kevin Spacey story broke, and instead of either burying the movie or trying to release it after Kevin Spacey was already tainted, Ridley Scott like famously decided to reshoot all of the scenes with J. Paul Getty. And he recast it with Christopher Plummer. And Christopher Plummer came in. I think he did a lot of reshoots on his own, and then they brought back Mark Wahlberg and Michelle Williams, who was his granddaughter, or not his daughter. Well, I think was his daughter-in-law. They came in and finished their scenes, and even though that movie was, probably less than 3 months out from being released, they still shot and finished all of the scenes with Christopher Plummer in time to still release it at Christmas. But the movie's pretty good. I just think that Wahlberg is miscast. Mm-hmm. But Christopher Plummer is very good in that movie. And then Beginners, which I mentioned at the top of the show. We're fans, and people in our orbit are fans of Up. Christopher Plummer is the voice of Charles Muntz, who's the villain in Up. The movie I almost considered doing before we decided on Inside Man was The Insider.
Oh, okay.
which he plays Mike Wallace. The Insider is the story about the 60 Minutes story about the tobacco industry.
Mm-hmm.
That there was a big controversy over in early to mid 90s, and that story broke. And Christopher Plummer plays Mike Wallace, the newsman, the late newsman that worked for CBS and 60 Minutes. And he's fucking incredible in that movie. That was almost the movie I wanted to cover. I still want to cover it at some point in time, but that was almost the movie I decided to do. But you and I spoke, and we decided, let's do Inside Man. And then, just want to shout out Dragnet, which have you ever seen the Dragnet movie?
No, I don't believe so.
With Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd. I don't think it's as beloved, but Christopher Plummer is the villain in it, and that was a movie that I used to watch on HBO when I was a kid because it was always playing. So I have quite a fondness for it. And Star Trek VI, which Christopher Plummer is the villain in, he's awesome in that too. The Undiscovered Country. So that's my Christopher Plummer tangent. Just shouting out a bunch of great roles and great movies he's been in. And of course he's pretty well known for The Sound of Music, which is probably one of his most well known roles. I only know The Sound of Music through pop culture, so I can't give you a definitive that's a good movie or not. It's a musical, so I probably am not inclined to watch it. But that's one of his more famous roles. But Christopher Plummer was awesome. He was a good actor. There's even a Christmas movie that I might consider covering with him in it later on down the line. He will be missed. He's awesome in this movie. And we can get back to Inside Man now. So, Detective Frazier and Detective Miller, they go down. You see the NYPD start blocking off the area. You see not SWAT. New York doesn't use SWAT. They use ESU, the Emergency Services unit, comes in. Basically, the SWAT team. They set up their command around the bank. As Miller and Frazier pull up, they go into the command unit. They're talking, or they talk with the responding officer, the guy that came across the robbery in the beginning, the guy that got the gun stuck in his face, and he's telling them about what's going on. And Frazier asks him, have you ever had a gun stuck in, pointed at you before? And he says, yeah, once. He says, once? He's like, yeah, by a 12-year-old. And he says, well, how did that go? And he's like, that wasn't one of my better days. But, he wants to stick around and see how everything goes. And, Frazier likes that. So then they go into the mobile command unit and they meet the captain who's running the show. And that's Willem Dafoe, captain who plays Captain Darius. And they're asking him some questions, and Darius just kind of blows them off. He's kind of like, how this works is, I talk to this guy, and then this guy will handle it. But that's the guy that Frazier and Miller are there subbing for because that guy's on vacation. So Frazier very point blank just says, yeah, how this works is that guy's on vacation. You report to me. And then, let us know when you're ready to talk. And they walk out. But it's pretty funny, just the way that Darius just kind of tries to throw him off. Or to blow him off, excuse me.
Basically, yeah, he kind of gives off the vibe like, you're not my boss, so who are you?
Yeah, and as they're walking across the street to the coffee shop, Frazier kind of lays it out for Miller, saying, yeah, I've dealt with these guys before. He brings it up with Darius. Hey, you remember me, on my training, there was the thing at the hospital. And he says, these guys are more tactical. They don't understand how we work. That it's more like a mental thing, because they're there to talk to the hostage taker. and try to convince him to, stop this. Or